To ensure accountability and transparency, state statute requires local governments to undergo a yearly, rigorous financial audit conducted by an independent CPA firm. To review the 2022 fiscal year, Jackson County brought in Moss Adams to audit its financial performance and present their findings to the Board of Commissioners. For the last several years, Jackson County's audit results have shown nothing but healthy financials and responsible use of the budget, and 2022's results were no different.
We issue 5 audit reports, and I know you're looking at the screen and you're seeing nothing but good news up there. And we're able to issue an unmodified or clean opinion over the financial statements. So this is the county-wide revenues. And as you can see, the county has consistently had some good increases in grants and contributions. If we were going to do a quiz, I'd have you guess what that is, but I'm sure you all are well aware that a lot of that is a result of the coronavirus relief funds as well as the ARPA funding over the past couple years. Your charges for services, pretty stable there. You can see that one little dip there. You're getting back to pre-COVID revenues with your charges for services. And then property tax revenue, you can see is relatively flat. Little increases there, but overall, I'm not seeing a significant trend. And then you can see overall, just a little bit of a dip for your total revenue, just that first year of COVID, which was relatively common. And then since then, some good increases in your revenues. So this is the expenses. So this is how are you spending those funds. Your revenues have had a pretty steady increase, and expenses are probably, I would say, a little bit more on the flat side, and it is because you do have some of those reserves of ARPA funding in order to spend into the future. This is the net position. So this is if you essentially eliminated your liabilities with all of your cash and assets, what's left over at the end of the day. So this is categorized in 3 types of accounts. The first bar there is the total. The second bar is your investment in your capital assets. So this is clearly not something that you can use to pay debts. And then you have restricted net position. These are resources that you cannot use for anything but a very restricted purpose by law. And then the last one is your unrestricted balance. So as you can see, you have positive balances in all categories here. And I would say that not all of your counterparts have been able to do that. So this is where it shows that it's impressive that you had to put some significant liabilities and accounts on your statement of net position, but it did not impact your ability to have some unrestricted reserves.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's have you notice if you take a look at the unrestricted and restricted net reserves, if you know our operating budget, we're almost 100% reserved for a whole year in our operating budget based on those reserves, and that's in dedicated and non-dedicated funds. So I would say you're probably not going to find any other, very few local governments that are in that position, if any. Not just in Oregon, but probably across the whole U.S.
Yeah. So this is what Danny's talking about there, about being essentially 100% of your next year's expenditures. So this is the general fund, and these are your fund balance in those funds. And the GFOA actually recommends having at least 1/6 of your expenditures sitting in your fund balance at year end in order to essentially not have to get funding or get a loan in order to bridge the gap in that time period between June 30th and getting your property tax money. So the county hasn't had to do that. It clearly has sufficient reserves in order to be able to maintain that gap. So you can see that as of June 30th this last year, so this is a really good trend. I would say this is not a statistic you're going to see in Oregon or many other governments as well.
I need to make one disclaimer here. So the public might say, why are you taxing us if you have all of this money sitting there? And I do want to just offer this anecdote is that I've been here for 18 years, and over those 18 years, we've built over $200 million in capital projects. We've been able to fund those between dedicated fund balance and general fund balance without asking taxpayers for any new taxes. So we haven't gone out for general obligation bonds, which also is not usual for most local governments to be able to build that kind of capital infrastructure. This is how we do that. And although our next project on our list, we're going to have some help from the public if it goes, which is the new jail. We do have earmarked $60 million from this reserve to go towards a new jail. And once again, I would say most local governments aren't able to do that.
So this is just the historical information for the general fund, so your revenues and expenses, and then the fund balance is there on the right-hand side. So as you can see, your general fund revenues have been able to climb, expenditures along with that. In addition to your fund balance, if you compare it to your cash and investments, you're going to see in this particular case, for 2022 anyway, that your cash is actually significant more than your fund balance. That is all essentially ARPA funds, and the reason why it is so much more than the fund balance is because you have unearned revenue in there. So until you spend those ARPA funds, they're sitting in unearned revenue. This is a comparison of the permanent rate in Jackson County for property taxes compared to essentially some of those north counties and what they're receiving in property taxes in order to fund their projects.
I'm going to translate that to we do what we do and have been able to do what we do for a much lower permanent tax rate or much less tax to our citizens in those larger comparable counties. Almost by a third less tax. If you look at that, we're in the bottom quarter for taxes in the state. So we've built this up over the last 18 years to get to this position. And we've done it by being able to tax our citizens less than other comparable counties might.
And it's never lost on me the daunting amount of standards and principles and guidelines and everything that those responsible in our county need to be aware of and need to follow and do it to the level that we see every year with no material deficiencies, unmodified clean opinions, just basically perfect reports, which again, can't understate the fact that is not common. That's very uncommon. Mm-hmm. But it's done pretty much every year, and I'm looking at a lot of the people in the room here that have a big part of that, but it's everybody in our county. It's the department heads down to the rank and file. They're all working together to make sure they understand and follow these principles. And I always want to recognize that. Our administrative staff, our finance, auditing, and every department, the work that they do is impressive. And it's not just impressive, but it really does put us in the position in Jackson County that our citizens don't have to be as concerned about some of the things, especially going into the uncertain times that we have where, our costs are going to increase, our expenses are going up, our revenues may decline, but we're still in a strong position to be able to provide the government support and services that our community relies on, our county depends on, and it wouldn't be, you can look around, you don't have to look very far to find other areas that are nowhere near in that position. They're wondering where they're going to come up with revenue to cover basic services and expenses. So I, again, don't want that to ever be lost on the public, and I don't want that to ever the folks that do this every single day and have to follow all these stringent policies and procedures. That is very, very much appreciated, and applaud them and say thank you.
I just want to second what Rick just said and everything, but I just wanted to add that and emphasize the fact that the work of the staff. I know that there's just a lot that goes into these kinds of things, and I just want to congratulate the staff and thank them for everything they've done to make this such a great report. Thank you.
And I'll just say thank you, Amanda, for presenting all this to us today. And just to add to that, I agree to it entirely, but that the expectations are ever changing. They just can't think of enough new rules to put in, right? And that you're on top of it, our staff is on top of it is amazing. And how we always appreciate that GFOA award. It just shows the excellence of the work that's been done. But I do want to highlight my appreciation for the external audit in your information that shows that the requirements and the processes are all being utilized appropriately, not just the funds, but it's important for the transparency and accountability for our citizens to see how their money is being effectively utilized in such a amazing presentation, and like the PAFR and all the information that makes it easier but available. And so thank you for all your hard work in interfacing with our county and our staff, and for all the staff's work to to bring this to us today. So it's a great job, and thank you for a great report.
I had one more thing too. I just
Certainly.
one of the people that's been a big part of this for years and years and isn't here today, but had a big part in this one is Harvey Bragg, and I want to recognize him. You know, we miss him, but boy, he was a big part of why this has happened every year. And I know we're going to take up where he left off, but I do want to recognize Harvey and
Yeah,
tell him thank you.
I think he was a part of the 2022, most definitely. So,
Yeah, and I want to add to that, thank him and everything, but Amanda, I also want to thank you. I do know that auditors are in a little bit of a difficult position because you are meant to, you're an oversight, you're looking in, you're digging and everything like that, but at the same time, you have to establish a working relationship with the client to make sure that you're also providing good advice, and I really appreciate all you've done to get that good working relationship and the right professional relationship. Thank you.
thank you. Anything else? Anything else? All right. Well, thank you so much.